Well, they usually do it like that anyway. So. I know.
That was easy, but
What is this for?
what's this?
Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock, and I would like to call the Beloit City Council meeting to order at this time. First order of business is roll call.
All councilors are present.
Second order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. May we all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Third item of the day is special orders and announcements. 3A,
Introducing the newly hired and promoted employees.
Captain Stigler, please come forward.
Yes, thank you. We have two new hires that are probationary patrol
Excuse me,
officers.
just a second. You need to come to the podium there so we can get you all on record there.
We have several new employees. We want to welcome two new patrol officers that are currently in the academy. That's Roman Bailey and Lee Robinson. Could you stand, please?
Welcome.
Then we have a promotion. Lori Hazelton is the chief's administrative assistant. And then we have three officers that are out of the academy, and that's Jacob Melke, Juan Rocha, Elijah Truly.
Thank you very much. We want to welcome you to the wonderful city of Beloit. Thanks for coming to the meeting this evening. And one of the reasons we do that is because these meetings are first televised live, so the public gets to know your names. And so when they see you out there, it kind of puts a face to the name. So that's one of the reasons we brought you in here tonight. And we're looking forward to great things. You're working for a great city. Despite what you may hear out there in other cities and stuff, this is a wonderful place to work. And I think we have good community involvement with our police department and fire department. So I think you're joining a great ranks of individuals, and we just ask you to keep that momentum going. So welcome.
Thank you.
Item 4, public hearings. 4A, please.
4A is a public hearing, consideration of Resolution 2018-112, authorizing a conditional use permit to allow outdoor seating area with a deck with the possession, sale, and consumption of alcohol beverages in a CBD 1 Central Business District core for the property located at 530 East Grand Avenue.
Ms. Christensen, please.
Dante Evans, doing business as Royalty Lounge, has filed this application for conditional use. He is proposing the construction of a 7-foot by 20-foot covered deck at the southwestern corner of the building. The deck would serve as a designated smoking area for patrons and would be accessible through the lounge only. This did initially appear to be an alley, so we asked him to get a title report to kind of see if there were any easements over it or anything like that. That area is on the subject property, and there is no easement or anything like that, so it's not officially an alley. The applicant has noted that the deck will include an awning and railings. The application and site sketch are attached to the staff report, and he has indicated that he intends to seek an agreement with an adjacent property owner to store his dumpsters, which will not be accessible from the private alley once the deck is done. He has indicated that he intends to install security cameras that will cover the proposed deck area and will have an employee stationed at the building exit to the deck when it is in use. Planning Commission reviewed this item at its last meeting and recommended approval subject to the 8 conditions which are included in the resolution, and they did modify condition number 4 to require the addition of at least 2 wall-mounted lights to illuminate the deck area, which I believe the applicant was okay with. So what's on your agenda tonight is a resolution which would authorize the outdoor area with the following conditions: that the deck as shown in the application attachments and the extension of the possession, sale, and consumption of alcohol onto said deck, subject to all of the conditions below. Prior to the establishment of the use, the applicant shall amend the liquor license for the premises to include the outdoor seating area. That has not yet been done, so that would still have to be done. Before constructing the deck, the applicant shall obtain an architectural review certificate and a building permit. Prior to issuance of permits to construct the deck, the applicant shall provide a copy of a written agreement allowing off-site placement of the trash and recycling dumpsters. Prior to use of the deck, the applicant shall finish his current project involving the installation of at least 2 security cameras that will cover the deck area. The applicant shall install at least 2 wall-mounted lights to illuminate the deck area prior to use. The maximum capacity of the deck shall be 6 people. This maximum capacity shall be posted inside the building and within the outdoor seating area. The applicant shall have an employee stationed at the building exit to the deck to prevent unauthorized entry to the tavern and to enforce the maximum capacity. And then some of our standard conditions related that we've been seeing on all of them, which is to include an emergency exit-only door or gate. Door or gate shall be at least 3 feet wide, and a clear path between the building door and the emergency exit shall be maintained. Music may not be played in the outdoor seating area after 10. That's due to nearby residential uses in the area. There's some upper floor housing. And Plan Commission did recommend approval 7-0.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open up the public hearing on item 4A. If there's anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Seeing none, I would close that portion of the public hearing and entertain a motion from council. Motion by Duncan, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Forback. Any questions or comments? Councilor Preschel.
This has to go before the ABLCC before it's approved for use as a extension, right?
That you would be approving the conditional use. In order for them to actually do the outdoor seating area, they have to meet all the conditions that are listed in the resolution. If you approve it tonight, one of those conditions is the amending the liquor license. So it's one of their implementation steps in order to get to the outdoor seating area.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 4B, please.
4B is consideration of a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow outdoor entertainment with the possession, sales, and consumption of alcohol beverages in an M2 General Manufacturing District for the property located at 701 3rd Street.
Ms. Christensen.
This application is for the Beloit International Film Festival event. Last year, they held their first summer blockbuster fundraising concert on 3rd Street, which was closed, which we actually closed down for the day. They had wanted to have it on the Spine Road, but there were some businesses that were opposed to it. But those businesses are no longer in that location, so the event for this year is planned for Saturday, August 11th, 2018, and it will be on the Spine Road. It will include a stage featuring several bands, food and beverage vendors, portable toilets, and a portable movie screen. The event area will be surrounded by fencing and will be accessible from the Spine driveway on the west and from the new bike pedestrian bridge over the river. Due to public access easements, the applicant will need to maintain a public pathway through the Spine for bicyclists and pedestrians not attending the event. There are numerous approvals required, including an outdoor vendor's permit, a license to serve alcoholic beverages, and a public entertainment license. If approved as submitted, the requested conditional use permit would allow this event to occur annually on the Ironworks property. The applicant and the city's review agents conducted a site visit on May 23rd. They agreed to provide temporary fencing around the event area to ensure that a fire lane is provided at all times. There is a wall-mounted fire hydrant within the event area that may not be blocked during the event. The applicant intends to have only one entrance gate near the convergence of the bike pedestrian bridge and the Spine driveway as shown on the attached site sketch. And the applicant will work with the property owner to determine the best location for traffic barricades along the spine driveway, and the applicant will not allow attendees to sit on the elevated flood wall, as the riprap sloping from the flood wall to the river may present a fall hazard. The YMCA is the only property owner within the noticing radius. However, the applicant intends to notify the owners of the condo units in the Heritage View building on the opposite side of the river. Plan Commission did review this at their last meeting, and they did recommend approval, subject to the conditions which are listed in the resolution before you tonight, which is that the conditional use permit authorizes BIF to hold one single-day outdoor event on the Ironworks property each calendar year, provided that the property owner authorizes each event. Prior to the first and each subsequent event, the applicant and/or their vendors shall obtain all required permits and licenses, including an outdoor vendor's permit, a license to sell alcoholic beverages, and a public entertainment license. To control the possession, sale, and consumption of alcoholic beverages, the entire event area shall be contained by existing building walls and temporary fencing. The fencing shall allow quick removal to allow access to a 20-foot fire lane through the event space. Access to the existing wall hydrant shall not be impeded. And then just our standard condition about major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being able to be approved administratively. And this is on your agenda for action tonight.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4B. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening, please step forward and state your name for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Motion by Preschel, second by Duncan. Any council questions? I do have one. Julie, when it says to hold an outdoor event on each calendar year, so we're not going to designate a date, so it's just kind of leaving it open. So if they're throughout the year want to change the date next year, they don't have to come back.
No, they would not have to
Okay,
come
so
back.
I just want to make sure. So that's probably why we've got it worded that way. So if they choose a different date next year, they can still move forward without continuing to come back.
I mean,
Okay.
if you want to require them to notify us ahead
No,
of
no,
time,
no,
we
no,
can
no.
do
I
that.
just wanted to make sure when I saw that's one of the reasons why we did it. So, 'cause I kind of agree with it that I think it'd be better just if they come up with a different day next year, not to have to keep coming back. So
Yeah,
each year.
it just limits them to one single day outdoor event
Okay.
on the property. They'll be contacting us because they'll still have to get all their licenses. But
Right. Okay. There is a motion on the second. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 4C, please.
Consideration of ordinance number 3621, amending the zoning district map to change the zoning district classification from R3, low-density multifamily residential district, to PLI, public lands and institutions, for property located at 749 Bluff Street, and from R1B, single-family residential district, to PLI, for the rear portion of property located at 737 Bluff Street. This is first reading.
Ms. Christensen.
So to start, the church property is zoned R3, and the house next door is zoned R1B. The house has been used by Hands of Faith, most recently Family Promise, as an office space or for a day shelter, and I think they also had offices there. At this point, the church intends to sell off the house. However, there is a garage and a dumpster area that the church currently uses. So what they came in and did is they did a plata survey, which basically allows them to do a lot line adjustment. And so that made the house be on a smaller parcel of land, and then the extra land was then attached to the church. So what they're proposing tonight is to actually rezone the church property, which would include the back half of what was the residential property, PLI. So that's why there's part of 737. So did I completely confuse you, Kevin?
No.
So that's what they're planning to do tonight, or what they've requested, so that then the church would be kind of an L-shaped parcel, and it would all be zoned PLI. Plan Commission did review this on June 6th. There was a discussion about ending the survey prior to ordinance adoption to increase the size of that remaining 737 parcel. However, that is a staff approval, and so we had already approved the survey, so it was kind of up to the church whether they wanted to and they told Drew that they want to leave it as it is. And so the lot that remains, the house lot, does meet all the minimum size requirements of code. So it would be a legal lot. It would not be substandard with that house on there. And so then Plan Commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment. This is on your agenda tonight for public hearing and layover under the rules.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open a public hearing on item 4C. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak on item 4C, please state your name and address for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening. Seeing none, I would close the public hearing and entertain a motion from council to lay this over to our next meeting. Motion by Forback. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Preschel. Questions or comments? Seeing Council Preschel.
The discussion was about the presentation at the Plan Commission meeting was that the lot meets the minimum requirements, not much more. And we were hoping that, at least that was my hope and a couple other people, that it might be extended a little further deeper so that there would be room to build an addition, a garage on that location, because there's no garage there now for the home. And if they're not going to do it, I mean, that's, we can't compel them to, it's not part of our, purview to do that, but it was a thought that in that area and with that kind of an older home that it would be nice to have a little more cushion, for development, to redevelopment of that space. Anyway, that was the extent of the discussion. I'd still like to see a little larger lot there, but, anyway, that was my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is a motion and a second. All those in favor of laying this over to our next meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes 7-0. 4D, please.
Consideration of Resolution 2018-114 approving an amendment to the 2018 Annual Action Plan and CDBG budget.
Ms. Christensen.
So the good news is that we've been notified from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that we are receiving $130,238 more than we originally budgeted for CDBG. So we were very concerned last year, since the president was zeroing out CDBG, that when we budgeted $500,000 that we were going to be lucky to get that. So we actually have been awarded $630,238. And additionally, we have $25,700 in prior year unspent CDBG funding that must be reprogrammed. And we did see some shifts in program income, which we see at the end of every year, but you've already approved a budget at this point, but this gives us an opportunity to get a real good calculation on caps for public service. So we're able to have final numbers for program income, which we never have when we approve a budget in November. So because it increased by more than 10%, it's considered a substantial amendment, and we have to basically go kind of back through the process again. We don't recommend projects that, we don't look at new projects, we look at funding existing projects that you funded for 18, just with some additional dollars. So what we are proposing is to allocate funds to continue the neighborhood revitalization strategy area activities, including $50,000 for the Resources Navigator services, which are where people in the neighborhoods can go to someone at Community Action who will help kind of walk them through the process of finding the services they need, finding the resources they need, which had been identified during the process, what was needed to help residents. And then $50,000 for a community social worker with family services, and then increasing code enforcement by $11,764 to get enhanced code enforcement in the NARSA neighborhoods. So these two positions are really the people stuff that, Kevin, you often ask about that we don't do here at the city, but we fund other agencies who do that to provide services to help bring people up, to help them. And then as part of this, we're also proposing to discontinue funding the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund, which has been through the GBDC process. And Andrew had actually, well, I don't know if Andrew's here tonight, but Andrew had actually sat through a presentation at the state level, and what they're seeing is that Economic Development Revolving Loan Funds are not doing very well. They're just not being utilized across the state, and Illinois actually got rid of theirs. So it is a common thing for the economic development revolving loan funds to at some point just not be taken advantage of. And then HUD, basically, if money is sitting, they're starting to those end up being findings and something that they could take away from us. So we want to find a way to use it in our community, not have them take it away from us. And so that's also part of this. And so attached to the staff report is the actual budget, which is probably easier to read on the screen. And then the other thing we did is we took, besides funding those, is we gave some of the public service entities a little bit more this year than what we had originally budgeted. When you're budgeting $500,000, if everybody felt like they were being cut. So we kind of increased the amounts for them so that we had a little bit more. It was I guess 24.33% increase is what Terry's showing on this sheet. And then it also requires us to amend this plan, which is a template. And this did go to incorporate that information. This did go to CDA, and they did recommend approval of this budget and plan amendment.
Okay, thank you.
On your agenda for public hearing and then action tonight.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4D. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening, please step forward and state your name for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening. Seeing none, I would close that portion of the public hearing and entertain a motion from council.
So moved.
Motion by Duncan, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Blakely. Any questions?
I just had a comment.
I know earlier, my question was, what did the additional funds go for that we had obtained? And so I just want to say thank you for your hard work, Julie, and also to mention that I was happy to hear that the funds went towards those agencies that really need it the most and those that are helping to improve the quality of life for many of our citizens in Beloit. So I just want to make that comment. That's all I have.
And Julie, I have a couple of questions as well. I know we said that we give this to agencies that we already awarded some funding to and not to new programs. So a couple of questions I have is, why wouldn't we look at new programs or even agencies that we ran out of money to fund? Like if it's, say, Hands of Faith, as an example, if we didn't award them any money, but we get extra income in, could we go back and say, well, we didn't have enough to give it to you, but
Yes.
since we had excess?
What I meant is we didn't recommend funding anybody who didn't apply for funds last year.
Right.
Because if we did that, we'd have to open it up to everybody, and we'd have to go through that whole process
Okay.
of the applications and everything. So if you had given somebody nothing, recommended nothing, that was considered, although you gave everybody a little something.
Right.
But we would have considered that because they had actually submitted an application last summer.
Okay.
So if you submitted an application last summer, you were considered.
Okay, thank you. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 4E, please.
Is a public hearing to solicit input on the community development, housing, and homeless needs in the city of Beloit for inclusion in the 2019 annual action plan.
Ms. Christensen.
I know this is confusing because I'm doing 18 and 19 in the same meeting. You can thank the federal government for that. So this is the meeting when we notice it as a public hearing to allow the community to come out and give us input on what they think the community development, housing, and homeless needs are in the city, which will then be included in the 19 plan and will also be considered when you set local goals at your next meeting. So we will take anything that gets identified tonight, and we'll also share that with CDA, because CDA will make their recommendation next week on what they think those local goals should be. And then that'll come to you where you'll have another public hearing on it, give people an opportunity again. And then those will be incorporated into the CDBG application to let applicants know what the council views as local goals. So this is the first piece in terms of public input into what those local goals are.
Okay.
And so it is just your opportunity to listen if anyone comes up, and there's no action on this tonight.
Okay, thank you. This time I would like to open the public hearing on item 4E. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening? Seeing none, I would close the public hearing, and I guess I could also ask counselors at this time if you would like anything included in the annual action plan at this time. Since that we're not taking formal action, but this is your opportunity to speak up as well. You're on. Hit it again. There you go.
Now I'm really on. I just wanted to clarify for the public especially, when will they have an opportunity to give their input again after this evening?
Walking a lot tonight. So if they're not here tonight, which they're not here tonight, then they could come to the July 16th meeting and give input as well. So they can look in the council packet, which gets published the week before, and see what came out of CDA. They could also come to the CDA meeting and give their comments at the beginning under public comment. So they could come, okay, so I'm going to back up. CDA, June 27th at 4:30. They can come and speak during public comments. Or July 16th, they can come to council and speak during the public hearing on the local goals. And they can also, if they do not want to speak at a public meeting, they can send Terry Downing an email at downingt@beloitwi.gov.
Can we also get maybe Terry's phone number that if they want to call in?
The best way is
through
to
email.
leave an email so
Okay.
that we have what their thoughts are in a written format.
Okay. And they also can find Terry, just in case they don't remember, the email address on the city's website also, right? Okay. Thank you. Any other councilor comments?
Yes, I have a comment. I'm wondering, as far as our homeless count, do we depend on community action for that count? I mean, do we need to know those numbers before we start to talk about at the CDA? No, we don't.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I didn't think you were asking.
Okay.
So, community action, Clint's been part of it before. Community action as part of the homeless count. I think there's other agencies that do it as well. I think because I actually haven't participated. But we don't need those actual numbers of homeless in terms of identifying the local goals. You're really identifying what the community thinks are the important things to focus on. And I mean, that's what the intent of the local goals is, to say, kind of what the focus should be. There are a number of organizations, if you look at your CDBG list, that are already providing homeless services. So there are a lot of them being provided in our community. And if you want that to continue, I mean, we can recognize homelessness as a local funding priority. But I mean, we can ask, I can ask Mark to come to the CDA meeting if you want to give a brief presentation on what they're seeing in terms of needs, if that would
Well,
be
I guess
helpful.
my other question then, and here I am on the CDA, but the homeless is just one part of what we're doing. We're talking about housing in general
Yeah.
for the entire city.
Yeah, and the annual action plan has a lot of the statistics in there of what the housing needs are. So there has been data compiled. There's a 5-year plan, there's an annual plan.
Right.
The annual plan from last year was on your agenda tonight. So there are some numbers contained within there and some of the needs that have been identified. And so your local funding priorities are really supposed to flow from that document and what we heard when we started our 5-year plan process. So when they kicked off the 5-year plan process, Terry met with a number of the agencies, with the general public, and had a bunch of different groups meet on the different areas, including housing, economic development, all of that. And then as part of that, there was also the numbers that got pulled as to what the needs were in the community.
Okay.
And so we're kind of, in many respects, flowing from that 5-year plan. And then the annual plan is kind of, you can look at the 18 annual plan to kind of see what we were seeing for 18 as well.
Okay. Thanks, Julie.
Sure.
And I guess I would like to see at some point when we talk about homeless is how are we doing in that area? So from year to year, if we're seeing a number, let's say 800 homeless, is it getting better? Do we track that somewhere down the road? I mean, you don't have to answer that tonight, but do we have?
Community Action tracks the number of homeless. We track the number of people that the homeless agencies we fund serve. So Hands of Faith is going to tell us how many families they served. I keep calling them that, Family Promise. So Project 1649 is going to tell us how many young women that they've housed. Each agency is going to tell us how many people they served. So that's not a true indication of how much need there is. That's how much they were able to serve with our dollars. But the, what is it called? Point in time, the homeless count that they do twice a year is the number that would actually tell us that. And we can get that number from Community Action before your July 16th meeting for
Yeah,
sure. We'll try to get it for the CDA meeting. I'll have Terry reach out to Mark and see if we can include that in the CDA.
And I guess
staff
just
report.
from a counselor's point of view, that as we look at funding an action plan for next year, I think we need to look at more dollars allocated to doing something to help the homeless population with those various agencies, but more importantly, want to make sure that if we're housing them, that'd be good to know, because otherwise we're putting money out there, but we don't know if that number is going
Yeah.
down, so.
We know how many people are being housed with our dollars, but we don't necessarily know how many people are being housed without our dollars. So our numbers are showing what CDBG is being used for. So Community Action, who participates in the homeless count, is going to have a better sense
Okay.
of how many people are receiving services, how many aren't, and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thanks.
But we can try to get those numbers before the CDA, but we could get those before the July 16th.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Julie before she walks away and said? Before she thinks she walks away. If not, thank you very much.
Kept me active.
Item 5 is public comments. We've reached a point on the agenda where citizens may come forward to discuss anything that's not part of the agenda. We do ask you to fill out a form, but if you did not fill out a form, you still have the right to come forward at this time on the agenda. We do ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We do ask you to refrain from any personal attacks from council staff. If we go down that road, I'll be asking you to sit down immediately. So we do have one individual that completed a form, and it is Bob Rohr. And if he wants to come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, folks. My name is Bob Rohr. I live at 1937 Vernon in the city of Beloit. I'm here to complain about a gentleman that's running his commercial business in a residential area. It's beyond any refuting. I've got video. I have film. This gentleman purchased this home 2 years ago. He gutted it with the auspices or the guise of remodeling this home. He's been basically working his commercial business out of this residence because he lost his warehouse since the passing of Roger Bryden. And I understand that the state statutes, that's where you get your code of ordinances. This man, and I'm not a building inspector, I'm a heavy equipment operator. But this man, as far as I can see, because my comprehension's pretty good, he's in violation of no less than 13. And he's also in violation of the state statute 34.40, which is basically describing an abandoned vehicle. You can't leave a vehicle longer than 36 hours. This gentleman leaves it for months at a time. I contacted Todd Deaver of the compliance department. He went over and talked to him. He did give me some results. He cleaned up the property a bit, but it wasn't long after that. He was right back at it. He's got permanently parked 2 commercial vehicles in the driveway, 3 trailers with building materials on them. I've got evidence that the building material is there one day and the building material is gone the next. And I take a photograph of the house and that material has not been placed on that house. I could show you the place that he's putting the material. I know where he's working. And I appreciate it if somebody would finally do something to stop this man from running his business across the street from my home. I have watched this for 2 years. That's all I get to look at out of my front window, is this blighted, abandoned home and these vehicles. And I'd appreciate it for whatever you could do for me. And I invite each and every one of you folks to my home and see what I've been looking at for the last 2 years. Thank you.
If I can refer this to Julie, if I can refer this to you, and can you get his contact information and kind of look into this and then get back to counselors of what you find and what we can do about it? Greatly appreciate it. Mrs. Christian would talk to you. She'll get your information before you leave, and then we can follow up. So, okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Come on down. State your name and address for the record.
Excuse me. I'm Steve Christensen, live at 3203 South Highcrest. I'm acquainted with the property committee at Our Savior's Lutheran. I just had a question over what occurred before. I heard you had a pass 7-0, but lay over till next meeting, reference to PLO usage at 737, 749. Is that meaning I have to come back, or has this already been passed?
We're going to bring it up and actually take the actual vote at the next meeting. So what we normally do in a situation like that, we do a first reading and then a second reading. So yeah, you should come back to the next meeting.
When is the next meeting?
July 16th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comments? Seeing none, I would close that portion of the agenda and move to item 6, which is the consent agenda.
All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
The consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6P. Is there anyone like anything removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Is there anyone? Seeing none. All those in favor of approval of the is there a motion to approve the motion by Jacobson? Second by Blakely. Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda consisting of items 6A through 6P, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 7, please.
Item 7A is a consideration of a resolution approving late renewals of alcohol beverage licenses for the license period July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. What you have before you are those who did not have their apps in by April 15th. They have since turned in their application, paid their late fee, and been processed. And then also at the end of that, due to a quorum issue at the ABLCC, also Club Valley, who was on there for approval. So you have a total of 14.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Duncan. Is there a second? Second by Preschel. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 7B, please.
7B is consideration of Resolution 2018-116 approving 2017-19 applicants for an alcohol beverage operator bartender's license for the period of May 29th through June 11th. You have 3 recommendations for approval and 0 for denial before you.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Forback. Is there a second? Second by Jacobson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 8, please. 8A.
8A is consideration of ordinance number 3619 to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, relating to the removal of parking on Middle Street and North Street with the establishment of turning movement at 4th and Middle and 4th and North intersections. This is second reading.
Director Williamson, please.
Good evening. You have before you the second reading for the no parking related to the 4th Street closure that we have for the high school, temporary closure there. This is second reading. The question was asked, were neighbors notified? And yes, they were as a part of our traffic review commission process.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Jacobson, second by Duncan. Any questions or comments?
Yes, and there was a communication with the neighbors involved that are adjacent to the streets with no parking being added, and there was no feedback or anything from them?
Correct. We received no feedback.
Okay.
Any other questions? There is a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 8B, please.
Consideration of ordinance number 3620 to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, relating to the establishment of a loading zone on Public Avenue. This is also second reading.
Director Williamson.
Yes, you have before you the authorization to allow for this, for the Goodwin Hotel. Again, this is second reading and recommend approval.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Forback. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Preschel. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. 8C, please.
8C is consideration of ordinance number 3622 to amend Section 2504, Sub 4, Sub D of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to officials authorized to issue citations. This is first reading.
Director Williamson.
Yes, this is just an amendment to the code to authorize staff with the authority to utilize this for any code violations. So we recommend approval for this as
Okay.
well. It's also for our stormwater management division.
Okay. Question before we take a motion. I guess I would be looking to do a slightly amendment, and if we don't see really major objections with this, move it to a second reading tonight and approve it tonight versus having it come back for a second reading. So if I can get a motion to that effect, I would greatly appreciate it. Motion by Blakely. Hold it. So we're going to make a motion to suspend the rules by Blakely, second by Duncan. So all those in favor of suspending the rules say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Now to the merit, which means this moves to the second reading. And if approved, it passes. We do not need to bring this back. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Can I get a motion? Motion by Jacobson. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Thank you. 8D, please.
8D is the consideration of ordinance number 3623 to create 1802 Sub 15 Sub J of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit authorizing outdoor vending for a Turtle Creek Chamber Orchestra event. This is seeking first reading. Suspend the rules for a second reading this evening.
City Attorney, please.
Good evening. As councilors are aware, there is a provision of the ordinance that prohibits outdoor vending in our parks, and we do have an exception list to that, and the Turtle Creek Chamber Orchestra has requested that they be allowed to have a food truck at an event that they've got coming up this coming weekend. So staff drafted the amendment to that section of exceptions and have included their event in that list. For the public's information, we are going through a special event permit ordinance revision that will encompass all of this, so you don't have to see these revisions on a regular basis. So because the event is also this weekend, we'd ask that you suspend the rules for this one as well, if that is council's desire. Thank you.
Okay. There a motion to...
Make a motion, we suspend the rules.
Motion by Preschel, second by Duncan. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Now we still need to vote on the merits, correct? Now to the merits. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Preschel. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? Councilor Jacobson.
I just want to thank staff for considering the special events ordinance that will evolve as time has, so that we can be more flexible with events in the future, and that counselors are not being sent anxious emails from anxious event planners as they come up on their event and we don't have a council meeting. So I think this will kind of appease everybody, and I think it's showing us a little flexibility with the city as sort of vending has evolved over time.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I believe there is a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 9, appointments.
The individuals to be named tonight have been nominated for a seat on a city board, committee, or commission. Each nomination is subject to confirmation by the city council. Approval of appointment will be accomplished by one motion unless a council member requests to take up a nomination separately, in which event the nomination will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. The appointments this evening are to the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee. We have Melissa Cronin, Jerome Jennings, Tara Tinder, and Shelley Cronin as the Beloit School District Rep. And to the Municipal Board, we have incumbent Diane Lichtenstein, incumbent Maribeth Miller, incumbent David Saul, and incumbent Shelley Cronin as the Beloit School District Rep. And to the Police and Fire Commission, we have incumbent Anna Kelly.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Preschel. Is there a second? Second by Blakely. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 7-0. Item 10 is council activities and upcoming events. Councilor Jacobson. Councilor Anderson. Councilor Blakely.
Oh, boy. I attended the Wisdom, that's the name of an organization, Gubernatorial Candidates Forum up in Pewaukee last Monday. 6 of the 9 candidates for Wisconsin governor were present to answer a wide range of questions on social justice issues for our state. Then they each got 5 minutes on stage, there are so many of them, to tell the audience of hundreds of people from throughout Wisconsin about why they want our vote in the August primary. That'll narrow the field down to 1 Republican versus 1 Democrat who will face off in the November election. Wisdom is a faith-based grassroots organization made up of members from many different denominations. They work to have a common voice on issues of social justice. Ruth Kolpak from our local chapter of JOB, J-O-B, Justice Without Borders, it's a related faith-based group. She organized transportation for the trip, and so Beloit and other Rock County communities were really well represented that night. I was proud to be part of that group. Last Thursday evening, I joined with other NAACP Beloit chapter members for our regular monthly meeting and to hear presentations by 2 candidates for other offices. These candidates are popping up all over, starting right now. Troy Knutson was there, running for Rock County Sheriff, and Kathy Myers attended. She's running for Congress. I just want to say that although the candidates at these recent events are not running for Beloit offices, they are among a vast pool of people out there in the political arena right now who want to help our communities. What happens at the county, state, and federal levels affects all of us here in Beloit. So I just want to urge everybody to pay attention to what's going on out there, who's running and what they stand for, and be prepared to vote in the August primary as well as the November election. More reminders to be had on those fronts. A couple quick announcements. This Wednesday evening at 5:30, the Equal Opportunities Commission will meet right here in the forum. It's open to the public. We have, I think, 2 vacancies to fill on the EOC. So if anybody out there wants to volunteer to help with fairness issues here in our community, please go to the BeloitWI.gov website and learn more about it. And anybody is welcome to come to our meeting. I want to give a big shout out to Beloit Public Library because I heard from a citizen this afternoon who lives in the Beloit City part of Lathers Woods who had such high praise for the library, I couldn't get the man off the phone. No, I'm kidding. He was just very, very much full of praise for the library about the excellence of our Beloit Public Library and how it compares to libraries he's seen elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Forback.
Well, other than
Turn your mic
lots of,
Turn your mic on.
oh, thank you. Other than lots of trips, of course, to the farmer's market. And then I think this is my 3rd city committee meeting. I went to the appointments. I'm not sure what the official name is.
Public review.
Public review, okay. And that was really interesting. Again, usually it's Sherry saying this or Regina, but these are important jobs to be done by citizens, to be on one of the city committees. And I've been able to go to 3 so far, and just want to say again, please put your name in, and you'll be useful and heard. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Preschel.
First of all, thank you to our police officers and the professionalism they showed last week. That was a tough one. I just happened to be having coffee downtown when they had their press conference, and it was a tough conference, and it's a sad time and everything, but everybody involved, from our Sarah and Lori and the chief, everybody comported themselves very well, very professional, and it was really good to see that and witness it myself. I don't get to do that very often, and I'm not And you guys did a really good job. I was glad to see it. Coming up next Tuesday and next Wednesday is the comprehensive plan open houses. The first one is on Tuesday night. Or Tuesday afternoon at 3:30 at the Merrill Community Center, and I will be attending that one. The next one is on Wednesday night at the Beloit Historical Society at 4:30 till 6, and I won't make it to that one, but it's an important document. It's an opportunity for people to look at what's been done for the comprehensive plan for the entire city area, and it's a time for people to look at it, ask questions, and provide input, because this is a big document that will guide future development, and we can all be nostalgic for what's gone before, but what's really interesting is what's coming down the road, so we should all have a say in that. And then regarding the Turtle Creek Chamber Orchestra, their concert at Harry Moore Pavilion is Sunday at noon, and they are a teaching orchestra. They provide opportunities for both professional grade teaching orchestra members and students to perform pieces during the summer vacation time. And it was a brainchild of Ian Nee and a bunch of other people, and it's really a wonderful thing they did, and it's great to see them out there. I was there last year, and I'm looking forward to being there this year. So that's this Sunday coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Duncan. No, hit it again.
Was I on and then I hit it off? Okay. All right. First, I just made a few notes of some places that I can remember that I've been to. I don't know, I've been able to be at 2 or 3 places at one time, but I've had an opportunity to go to our farmers market. It was wonderful downtown. There are so many different vendors down there, a lot of fresh vegetables and fruits, so I wish more people would take advantage of it, but it's wonderful. And then also I had a chance to go to the music at Harry's place and got a chance to see the Jimmys. So I want to say a big thanks to Jennifer Codal and all the friends of the riverfront. It was beautiful out there. The night was gorgeous. Weather was good, and it was a lot of people having a lot of fun. So let's take advantage of those events that are going on downtown. I don't think we're doing enough of that. It would only take for you to go to another bigger city when you have to wait or take an hour or 2 hours to get somewhere before we really realize what we have here in Beloit, so I'm really happy about that. And then I also had an opportunity to go to the School District of Beloit Summer Food Program, and there along with me was some of our city staff from the Department of Public Works and our very own mascot, D.W. Fox. So that was great to see. And there were a lot of families there. They had like 3 bouncy houses at Beloit High School. There was food, and there was a lot of different health agencies there promoting health in the city at the high school for different for families in the community. So that was wonderful. Also, this morning, President Levy and I attended the revitalization meeting. I know there are going to be some new projects. We see the building going on restructuring going on all around the city, but it's nice to also get citizen input on our different areas. And so we were able to get that this morning regarding the revitalization of Turtle Creek Park. So looking forward to the future efforts there and see what's going to come from that. And then also I would like to echo what Councilor Forbeck talked about, and that was the vacancies on our committee. We have had a lot of conversations about things that are going on and discussions, and I would also just like to echo, I'd like to say in regard to the Appointment Review Committee, we had a really tough decision that was taking place during that particular meeting, but also I would like to thank some of the newer members that are on board. We may not agree all the time, but it's good to know that we have various opinions, and we try to do what's best for the city at the end of the day. So I just want to say thank you to everybody involved in that. Also, I know I had one more thing that I wanted to say. I know what it is. I just want to give a big thank you to our city staff, and especially the Department of Public Works. When you go down Milwaukee Road, you can't help but see all the different projects. I know it's and I know I get frustrated too going through there, but it's going to be beautiful at the end of the day. And I was told hopefully by Labor Day, some of it'll be over. So I just want to say to our city staff, it hurts a little bit right now because we have to be a little bit more patient. But I just want to thank you all for what you're doing, our police department, our fire department. We work as a team to do what's best for the citizens. So I just want to say, Julie, Eric, everybody, and to our city manager, we appreciate and we see what you're doing. So thank you so much. That's all I have tonight.
So you like the orange cones down on Milwaukee? You haven't taken.
They're temporary. You gotta remember that they're temporary.
You'll really be temporary if you start taking a couple of them out there, right, Lori? No, just a couple of things. First of all, I want to ask the city staff, as you notice, the city manager's not here this evening. She did have a family emergency that she's dealing with, but we're asking everyone to lift her family up in prayer as she takes care of that family emergency. So that is why she's not here this evening. And no, I didn't have to explain it, but a lot of times when you don't see the CEO of an organization around, people start to wonder where she at. So she is out on a family emergency, and they notified me earlier today. So our prayers are with her and her family. Also, a couple Saturdays ago, I had an opportunity to attend a softball program in the city. They have over 200 students, the kids that's going to be participating this year in this program, and each year is growing immensely. They are looking for coaches and volunteers to help, and then yes, also donations as well. If there's anyone out there that's willing to assist, you can reach out to Pat Majid. I'm going to give her business number here, 365-3044. You can give her a call with any help that you would like to assist with. And then also I would like to thank Laura Williamson, as Vice President Duncan said today. We had a meeting for the Turtle Creek Park where we're looking at doing some things in there. And the reason I wanted to single her out is simply because she has not even been here 6 months. She probably hasn't even been here 4 months. And to watch her lead the discussion this morning with the history that you would think that she had been here a long time, with the knowledge that she had, the background that she had. I've been here all my life, and some of the things she was bringing up, I was like, wow, okay. So hats off to her, because that shows you the dedicated staff that we have. And all our leadership and our entire staff, when they do something, they do research it and make sure that you're getting the right information. As Vice President Duncan has stated, we may not always agree with the information they provide, but they do research and they do a job well. So hats off to her and her staff. For we had about 15 or so people, and they left there pleased with the plans that we're moving forward with. So I'm encouraged. I continue to say great job to our staff. You don't hear it often enough. And to the clerks and to the city manager, city attorney, I know you have an extra job because you have the 7 of us to deal with. At the last minute where we're calling for information. Okay, that's just me. When we're calling for us, but I just say that because we're dedicated. They're dedicated to what they do. So I don't think you can't thank people enough for what they do. So that ends my comments. Now we move to item. Did everyone get a chance to? And thank you to our Beth Jacobson, who was recently appointed and then reelected and drove in the parade, and she's doing this job after foot surgery. She's dedicated. She's dragging. She comes on crutches. Is that good enough? She. Item 11, city manager's presentation. Item 11A, please.
Is the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Mr. Miller.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilor Jacobson, for everything you do. Each year, Baker Tilly performs an independent audit and helps prepare the comprehensive annual financial statement for the city of Beloit. It's a pretty extensive process that we actually begin back in December when we do preliminary audit field work. And then it continues on all the way through even the month of June that we're in, and we'll be wrapping up the final report this Friday. And so none of that could have happened, of course, without the dedication of my staff that helped me immensely along the way. So while we're giving thank yous, I would like to express a sincere thank you to everybody in my staff, particularly Dawn Duvall in our accounting department, who does an absolutely fabulous job each and every year in preparing the information needed for the auditors to come in here and do their job. And without her help and wisdom to be able to do that, this process would not have gone as smoothly as it has in the past. So just thank you to her and all her staff and the rest of my staff in the finance department. So with that said, I would like to introduce Jody Dobson, who is a partner with Baker Tilly, and she will run through the audit report for you.
So thank you very much for having me here tonight. As Eric said, my name is Jody Dobson, and I'm one of the two partners that works on the annual audit. And I have a presentation here that we'll go through. I believe you have a copy in front of you, and then we've also got it on the screen. What I want to do tonight is walk through some highlights from the financial report as well as the communications that we issue. As noted, the reports will be finalized this Friday, so they're in draft right now. But they will receive what we call an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give, and lets the outside reader know it's a fair presentation of the finances of the city when they use this information. So the first thing we want to do here is look at the fund balance. We're going to walk through the highlights as fund balance, operations, debt capacity, and then look at the utility operations a little bit. So starting with the general fund balance, this is the major operating fund of the city. And we see the different types of fund balance here, the non-spendable and the assigned. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those are representing. The non-spendable is really made up of your delinquent property taxes, inventory, prepaids, and advances. So if we think about this, these are things that are not liquid or you can't access in the short term. As we can see here, we have the numbers for 2016 and 2017. So just a very slight increase from 2016 to 2017. Back in 2015, this number was about just under 1.8 million. So it's decreased from that and stayed relatively stable. And then the next number we have is the unassigned fund balance. And so this is really the amount that's available for the city operations for any use that you need. And at the end of 2017, that was 8.5 million, increased from 2016 as a result of the overall general fund income that we'll talk a little bit more about. So one of the key benchmarks that we look at with this number is comparing the unassigned fund balance to the subsequent year's operations. And you actually have a policy that's disclosed in the CAFR that your unassigned fund balance should be the greater of either 15% of revenues or 3 months worth of expenses. So if we look at that policy, your minimum would be at 7.7 million and you're actually at 8.5 million. So you're in a very good position there. And again, as we do that comparison year over year, very consistent. And then at the bottom here, looking at the highlights on the actual results for 2017 compared to 2016 and the 2017 budget. And we can see that the budget was at a break even, and you actually had revenues in excess of your expenditures for 2017. And we'll look at that a little closer, more detailed in a couple slides. So then turning to the next page, our general obligation debt. So this is really where you've borrowed using the capacity of the city. And one of the key things that we like to look at here is how much of your debt capacity, your statutory limit, has been used. So we have the outstanding general obligation debt at just over 49 million, and your capacity or your allowable borrowing is just over 80 million. So you've used about 61% of that capacity, which is down slightly from the prior year. And then one other item that we always have looked at is the internal service funds. This is really focusing on your equipment operations, general liability, health insurance, and retiree insurance funds. And so what we can see here is that at the end of 2017, the total internal service funds have a net position deficit. And that's a result of a change in position deficit or expenditures exceeding revenues for these funds in 2017. And if we look at that detail, the deficit was really housed in the health insurance and retiree insurance based on some claims history. So So turning to the next page here, we have another slide looking back at that general fund balance, a little bit more historical perspective here over a 5-year trend. And so what we can see is that that non-spendable fund balance from 2014 to 2016, we saw a very consistent decrease. And as I said, there's just a slight increase in 2017, almost as a holding stable. So not seeing anything unusual there. And then in the unassigned fund balance, the bottom line, that has been increasing for the last 4 years, or building that reserve to give you flexibility. The assigned has been 0 the last 3 years. That's if you were to have set something aside at year end for the subsequent year. So if we look then at the next page, we just have definitions here of each of those 3 areas to kind of provide context. Then turning to page 6, this is where I said we've got a little bit more detail of the revenues and expenditures, the actual 2017 in the general fund compared to the final budget. So as we can see at the bottom of the page, the budget was to have the fund balance at the end of the year be equal to the beginning of the year, and there actually was an increase of almost $290,000. So if we look at those variance line items, some of the significant changes here, and these are outlined on the next slide for you as well, but at the licenses and permits, there was a dwelling permits came in a little bit lower than what was budgeted. There was about $150,000 less in dwelling permits. Fines and forfeitures and penalties, the revenue came in a little bit below budget. And that was really in the traffic, non-traffic, and parking fines were the areas that drove that. And then investment income, the decrease there was primarily due to an unrealized loss that was recognized at year end. So this is when you've got longer term investments, the market valuation on those fluctuates from day to day, and right at year end there had to be a write down on investment, but that will change over time again. So that was not a realized, it was just a book entry at year end. Then if we go to the expenditures section, we can see overall expenditures were about $973,000 below budget. And so if we look at those, the 2 biggest areas were under general government, was about $500,000 below budget, and that was really driven by licenses and permit costs. And then under the public works, streets and sanitation was about $500,000 under budget. So then turning ahead to slide 8, when looking at the general obligation debt capacity for the city, we again like to look at a 5-year trend here as to where has your outstanding debt been versus your debt limit. And so what we can see here is your outstanding debt has been below that debt limit, but it's actually been getting further below the debt limit over the 5 years, so those lines have been getting further apart. So we can see that the debt limit has been increasing over the past 5 years. 2017 was a 5-year high, and that is based on 5% of the equalized value. So that's a direct relationship to the valuation in the city. And then at the same time, your outstanding debt has been decreasing and hit a 5-year low in 2017. So right now, your debt capacity available to you is just over 38%. And the median for similar communities your size in the state is about 58%. So the next couple slides are going to shift gears a little bit and look at the enterprise funds for the city, the utilities. Starting with the water utility, the top number here we have is the gallons of water sold. And you did have a slight increase in 2017, about 1.3%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the industry trend is really for flat or declining water usage outside of having any growth. So this is an indicator of some growth in the community. If we look at the graph here in the middle of the page, we see a comparison of the operating revenues to the operating expenses of the utility over the last 5 years. And we can see that you've consistently been able to cover costs. And the water utility did examine its rates during 2017 with new rate structure put in place to ensure that you've got revenues coming in to maintain the ability to cover those costs as well as provide for future infrastructure. So 3 key benchmarks here that we have at the bottom of the page. The first is your cash reserves on hand. The goal is to have 3 months worth of operations on hand, and that's right where you are at the end of 2017. There's been some little ups and downs over the last couple years, and that's normal that you may have some large projects that draw it down and then quieter years on the construction side that build that back up. Your rate of return, this is how the State Public Service Commission develops water utility rates, is that you should be earning a return on your investment in infrastructure. And your rates were designed with a 5% rate of return. This year you earned a little bit higher than that. I think primarily driven by having kind of some good management and lower costs this year. So that's a very positive position to be in. And then the debt coverage at the bottom, this is a requirement of the revenue bonds that were issued by the utility to make sure that the bondholders are able to be paid out of the water revenues. So the minimum required is 1.25 and you're at 1.8. So not a concern about being close to that minimum at all, in a good position there. So if we turn to the next page, then we have the sewer utility. Very similar information. The units billed for sewer follow very much in line with water usage. The sewer utility had new rates effective at the beginning of 2017. And really that's important to monitor those rates on an ongoing basis because they're consistent cost increases, unfortunately, with the sewer utility, things like chemicals and power that are very tied into your treatment costs. If we look then at the bottom of the page, we can see cash reserves, just over a year's worth of operations, so very strong position there, allowing flexibility. And we can see that that's been building up at the same time as the debt has been paid down or that debt coverage has increased, which is also important because as you pay off the debt on your infrastructure, your treatment facilities, that means that they're aging and the likelihood of repairs and replacement is going to increase in the need of some of those reserves. So that's a good position to be in. And our last utility here then is the stormwater utility. Very similar information. We see the slight increase in billing units with the growth in the community. And the operating revenues for the last couple years have outpaced the expenses with some management by your staff there on the cost side. And then if we look at the cash reserves, about 9 months worth on hand, so well above that minimum requirement. And the debt coverage here, again, is well above the minimum requirement because the stormwater utility has not had to use as much revenue debt for its infrastructure. So all 3 of those utilities appear to be in a very strong and stable position. And then the last fund that we looked at was the transit system. The transit has seen, as we look at the 2 graphs here, relatively stable mix of both revenues and expenses. It has seen a little bit of a decrease in the passenger fares over the last couple years with ridership, which is really, I'll say the industry tends to see this if gas prices drop down and the economy does well, we see a slight dip in ridership. But that's been made up by some other local subsidies. And the overall mix of costs has been fairly stable. There were slight increases in the contractual area, maintenance and legal costs in 2017, but not significant amounts. And if we look over the past 5 years, 3 of those 5 years, the revenues have outpaced expenses. So in all of them, they've been very close in either direction. So just ongoing management there. So along with the opinion on the financial statements, or the CAFR, there's a second document that's issued to you that's a report to management and those charged with governance. This is a similar report to what we've issued in prior years. It discusses some internal control areas. One of those areas is that, as Eric said, we assist with the preparation of the financial statements at year end. That's very common in public governments, just because of having additional staff on hand is not always a cost benefit for things that are done just once a year. And then there's also some recommendations related to specific internal controls over certain cycles that management has been looking at, revisions to policies to see where they can address some of those items, and that just takes time. And then there's a section in that letter that I'll say is what's the required communications that we as the auditors have to communicate to all of you. A couple highlights in there is there's no new accounting policies for 2017. There will be a new accounting policy related to other post-employment benefits. It's implemented for 2018, so there's some additional information in there for you just to start thinking about how that's going to make things look different. There were no concerns or unusual transactions that came up that were required to communicate. The estimates that are involved in the financial statements, we do certain tests over those, and those all were deemed to be reasonable. And then there were some journal entries at year end. Anything that was uncorrected actually were items that were timing issues from 2016 to 2017. So those have all now flowed through to the end, and the remaining items were all included in the financial statement. So nothing of concern there as well.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
Jerry.
Jody, I just had a quick question about an item on page 3, which is the percent of debt limit. Are these figures for last year and the slightly smaller percentage figure of this year? Is that a fairly good percentage, or should we be looking to do something more on that end? Should we try?
We see these percentages, I will say, across the board. It's a wide range, depending upon what's going on in the community, what kind of aging infrastructure they might have, what kind of growth. TIF districts can make a large difference if you've got some development going on that you're putting infrastructure in for. I don't know if you want to comment about any goals there.
Yeah. So what isn't reflected here is the fact that we have a 5% debt limit that we can borrow up to on our equalized values. We here have an internal policy of 3.5%. This falls even way below the 3.5%. So if get math here on you, so if you take 5% and multiply it by 0.6146, which is 61% of 5%, that's where our limit is. And so we're at about 3.08% of the 3.5%. So it's very good, in my opinion, where we are. In other words, it gives us the capacity to go out and borrow if there were some emergency that we needed to go get emergency funds.
Any other questions? I do have a question, Eric. We looked at the decrease in ridership.
Yes.
I guess I need to know, what other options are we looking at to increase that ridership? I know with the schools, I know we look at that, but in years past, have we looked at doing anything with Beloit College? I know a lot of colleges have passes for students when they come to town because they know they don't have cars, but are we looking at the buses going out to the businesses out by the gateway? I don't know if you're able to answer that, but if you can.
I don't know specifics in terms of where the routes are, where we're working on the routes, but what we have had conversations with Laura Williamson and Michelle Gavin with our transit authority. Those are going to be some of the highlights that we're actually going to be looking at in this year's budget when we sit down in a few weeks to start going through those things. These are the kinds of numbers and questions that we're definitely going to be bringing up and reviewing to bring forth that information to you at a later date.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Or seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. 11B, please.
It's the 4th of July safety presentation with Captain Stigler and Chief Liggett.
How are you all this evening?
Great. How are you?
Fantastic. Trying to avoid the rain. Needed a boat to get back here. So anyway, fireworks season's coming up. We have 3 vendors that reside in our city, Phantom Fireworks, amusement brokers, and Coordinator Fireworks. They all cooperate with us throughout the year and on fireworks vending, and they support our prevention efforts through public education, and we appreciate that partnership. What we need to do is call upon our citizens to make sure that they're doing the right thing, helping each other out, being good to your neighbor, not using illegal fireworks. Now, fireworks are available all over the United States in different forms. They're available in other states, things that are not legal to sell to Wisconsin residents in Wisconsin, obviously. We can sell fireworks to other folks in other states that visit and come through our community. Just a reminder, if you're visiting our community from another location and you purchase fireworks at one of our fireworks stores, you have the ability to package those up and transport them out of the state, but you cannot use them within the state of Wisconsin without a permit. And the city of Beloit does not sell a permit for show fireworks other than those that we do for our public fireworks show. Occasionally we have public shows that are done at local churches with Vets Roll, all kinds of things like that, the snappers, right? What I want to encourage folks to do in our neighborhoods is to come out to the Beloit Public Fireworks Show, all right? Pops on the Rock. We're going to be doing that this year. We're going to have a bigger show. We have the orchestra in the park. There are activities there. There's going to be food there. Bring your family down and enjoy the fireworks show. Save yourself some money. All right, don't spend it on all those fireworks. All right, if you do use fireworks, use them sensibly. Buy what's legal. If it goes up and blows up, if it goes up in the air or blows up, it's illegal in the city of Beloit in the state of Wisconsin for a Wisconsin resident to have that without a permit. Once again, the city doesn't sell permits for you to have those here in the city of Beloit. If it stays on the ground, if it's a fountain, it's sparkling fountain, a snake, a smoke bomb, those types of things are all legal. Sparklers are legal, right? I want to remind folks, though, that sparklers are one of the most dangerous fireworks out there. Sparklers cause more injuries to children than in most other fireworks, right? They burn about 14 to 1800 degrees. And if a child's holding them in their hand, there's very easily can set their clothing on fire, or a spark get in their eye. So it's important to make sure that you use sparklers in the proper way. A sparkler should be stuck in the ground, right, and observed from a distance, not carried by a child running around the yard. Right? I know it sounds funny, but that's the truth. All right? That's how to properly use a sparkler. It's stuck in the ground and ignited and not carried around. Remember, if you have a firework that doesn't operate properly, the fuse pulls out, don't try to ignite that firework because it can ignite your hand. Don't want to stand over fireworks if you're using them. You should have something that can extinguish a fire if it does occur. And if you do get a fire, please call the fire department right away. All right? You can try to put it out yourself, but first thing you do is call the fire department, then try to put the fire out. All right? Very important. We get complaints every year, 400, 500 complaints every year to the police department for those fireworks calls. We need to call upon our neighbors to be nice. All right, don't use them late at night. All right, I know that the fireworks show goes on until about 9 o'clock, and then it's to travel home. And while you're at home, you want to use your personal display. Just remember that your neighbors have dogs. Dogs are afraid of all of the fireworks and can cause them a lot of stress. And then there's the debris of the fireworks themselves. Make sure you clean up your yard and the street so that we keep our city beautiful. Those are the types of things that I'm asking for, and just reasonableness, being nice to your neighbors, and being safe if you choose to use fireworks. The last thing I want to remind folks is those coming out to the public fireworks show, you cannot, I repeat, cannot bring fireworks to a public fireworks show. It is illegal in the state of Wisconsin to do so. If you're going to bring something to keep your children busy while you're waiting for the fireworks show, bring a game, bring a frisbee, bring a baseball, bring a football. Tell some stories, read. All right, we're talking about early childhood literacy. Let's read to each other while we're waiting for the show. Enjoy a meal, enjoy a soda, but don't play with fireworks at the public fireworks show. All right. Any questions? Any group that needs a presentation on fireworks, we'd be happy to come out and talk. And again, we appreciate the partnership of our law enforcement friends and everything that they do on the 4th of July. And just so you're aware, our leadership team gets together. We put together an incident action plan for the fireworks show, and we have a communications plan and how we're going to respond if there's an emergency during the show. And I appreciate their partnership in everything that we do. Kevin?
Thanks, Chief. I'll echo our relationship with the fire department. We work very closely with them, especially during events like this. This is a big deal for the city. We want to see it go off safely. The biggest problem is the illegal fireworks in the residential areas. We get hundreds and hundreds of calls for that complaint, and it taxes our resources tremendously. So we would ask the public, as the fire chief Liggett said, please, they're illegal in the city. You cannot legally let those off and leave them in Illinois. Traffic-wise, there's going to be a few block parties going on. Obviously, there's a lot of parades and events where streets are going to be you're not going to have normal access, so please be aware of that. Look out for the barricades and watch out for the children that'll be running around, especially right at dusk. So thank you very much.
I have a couple questions, and I'm seeing other councils have questions as well. There was at one time we talked about the block parties. Were we looking at some kind of ordinance or something, or limiting or eliminating the block parties? So we had a conversation last year about it, and we never heard anything back. And the reason I'm asking is because I would hate for people to start planning for those block parties now, then all of a sudden be told right before the holiday, sorry, we can't have them anymore. So
right, they're allowed this year. They're going to be monitored for any issues. Part of the special events ordinance, we're also going to be talking about street closures and block parties. So we're going to have that kind of included in that conversation.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
The second question is, so we know anything that, as Brad said, blows up or is illegal, goes up or blows up is illegal. So are the fireworks stands around here selling those items?
We conduct a fireworks inspection for each stand. They can't sell fireworks until we go out and do that inspection. We look at all of the items that they're selling. We make sure that they're in the safe and sane category, or the 1.4G or our Class C, which is in our ordinance. We make sure that everything meets that ordinance requirement before we allow them to sell fireworks. At the fixed facilities, Phantom Fireworks, Cornelia Fireworks, and amusement brokers, they do sell mortars and bottle rockets and Roman candles and firecrackers. They can sell to out-of-state residents, or they can sell to Wisconsin residents who hold a proper permit.
And how do they know that I hold a permit?
They have to present that permit to them when they come to purchase the fireworks. And usually a mayor, a fire chief, council president are the only ones under the state law that can issue those permits. And we don't obviously issue those permits in the city. There used to be a practice, and you probably remember this, Mr. President, where our local vendors would sell their own permits. Those permits have been determined to be illegal by the Attorney General, and he has been very supportive of the fire service and law enforcement in stopping that practice. What would happen is, under the ordinance, or under the state statute, a fireworks vendor would sell you a $5 permit that said you could go shoot on a farmer's land in Grant County, and on this day, between this day and this day, you can shoot on that land. And as long as you promise to shoot only on that land, you can buy whatever you wanted to in the store. We stopped that practice back in 2003 when I became fire chief.
But basically, any of the vendors that sell within the city are selling all legal stuff. They're not, none of them are selling illegal.
Right. The tents, they can only sell the stuff that's legal to use in the city of Beloit.
Okay.
So fountains, snaps, smoke bombs, spinners, those are all things that are
But kids
legal.
would probably say the boring stuff, right?
Yeah, the boring stuff, yeah.
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 So now, as far as the fixed buildings, do we do some kind of sting or something to go in and see if they're selling to people? I mean, and let me ask you, and I'm just dressed. I'm just saying, because if we keep saying the stuff is illegal and yet we're still using here, or, I know they're going to get it anyway, but the argument could be, well, if it's illegal in Wisconsin, why are we selling it in Wisconsin? But I don't want to fight that fight.
Sure. As far as selling within the city, we would do a complaint-based investigation if someone said, hey, I know my buddy on Wisconsin Avenue bought fireworks illegally at such and such store on Milwaukee Road, then we could do that complaint-based investigation.
Okay.
If they're as far as active enforcement, we have in the past worked with the police department on attempting to purchase fireworks. Back in like 2004 or 5, we attempted to do those kinds of enforcement actions. We didn't see an increase or a decrease in the number of complaints that we were seeing in the police department. We still saw 400 or 500 complaints.
Okay.
So the source is we have worked with ATF and Department of Criminal Investigation in bringing down vendors that sell illegally. We get those complaints directly from the fireworks vendors. I'll get a call from one of our local vendors and say, hey, we know and heard of a guy selling out of the back of a truck on Philhauer Road. Can you check it out? And we've called upon our ATF partners to crack down on those. And that's worked for us in the past also.
Okay. But I would just like to also let the public know that a lot of times I'm kind of walking around just seeing what goes on. But to me, safety is very important, and it's disheartening when you're riding down or walking down the street and you see fire trucks or police cars coming down and you have individuals actually shooting fireworks at the vehicles. To me, the public, and that's not everybody, but what I've seen is that, that's a danger and that's a safety issue, that anything could happen. And I always say, what if they were on the way to a call for a family member of yours? Would you like something like that to interfere with that? So I would encourage, as you said, for everyone in the public to be safe. But people who are hosting the block parties, I think we need to step it up and make sure that anybody who's attending that block party knows the rules and say, hey, we're not gonna do anything crazy or that's unsafe, because people can get hurt. So
I would, I would venture to reach and say that, and I'd ask maybe an opinion from the city attorney regarding the use of fireworks at that public gathering. It may require a permit, and that's something that we need to discuss as a leadership team. If they're using it on their private property along the street, great. But if it's out in the middle of the street during a public gathering, it probably requires a show permit, in my opinion.
Okay.
So.
Councilor Duncan.
In concern for safety for the children and for the people that use the fireworks, this is just a question or maybe something that you can get out to the public. Just wanting to know, with summer school starting, will we be having staff or will they be able to get the information out regarding safety? And then also, will we have information available on our Facebook pages for the police and fire department? Or what should the public do in order to be informed?
Certainly, we'll make sure that we have some postings out there about encouraging folks to choose other avenues to entertain kids. But if you choose to use fireworks, here's the safe way to do that. We'll make sure that that's out on Facebook. Regarding summer school, reaching those kids, we would have to just reach out to the school system with those same materials to ask them to pass it along for us.
Jerry, did you have something?
I was desperately seeking pictures that I took on the last 4th of July because I had a chance to go on a ride along. It was a great experience, and I saw how well you handled relationships with the public and how alert you all have to be, you know, as you drive around the city streets that night. And there were a couple situations, as I recall. Darn, I can't find those pictures. They would have made, of course, I'm untrained in this area, but that would have made me a little nervous. But we drove right up, and in a very kind and considerate manner, you engaged with the folks on the street, and there were, it was all done very peacefully and in a very friendly way. And I remember winning over the heart of a little boy who was so surprised that he could talk, you know, to somebody in a uniform in a car on the 4th of July and be treated with a lot of respect, be treated like the young man that he was. So it was a really good experience, and I was very much impressed with seeing all the work that you go to, seeing the temporary headquarters set up to handle potential emergencies. So I'm looking forward to another safe and happy 4th of July, thanks to fire and police.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Jacobson, did you have something? Want to turn your mic on, please?
I was just going to say, President Levy, that we amended a ordinance earlier. We passed a new ordinance earlier to authorize some people in water to issue citations. So maybe the council should consider an ordinance to train you on fire safety and give you the authority to write citations on firework violations. That's something you can talk about with the chief at the budget hearing. Maybe we could increase revenue.
You just got to be careful who you let down here on this. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the chief and captain? If not, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Item 12A, please.
Consideration of Resolution 2018-111 approving the City of Beloit Sewer Utility Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Compliance Maintenance Annual Report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. First, before I go on, as you can imagine, it's been a busy night in the city of Beloit for our public works and other first responders. I just want to thank them right now for the work they've done. I've been out, as you can see, I've been out taking phone calls a little bit tonight. We do have people staged at critical areas and other infrastructure in the city, so people are out there, they are monitoring, and they are taking care of it. So on behalf of Laura and the city council, I'd just like to thank them for what they're doing tonight, because I know when I go home, I have to continue helping my neighbor build a basement. So yeah, and there's a lot of water out there. So that being said, again, thank you to all out there. Onward to the business. The purpose of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Compliance Maintenance Annual Report is to audit the wastewater treatment and collection systems for problems or deficiencies. Proper management, fiscal responsibility, along with operational and maintenance activities are evaluated and graded. The utility is proud to note that 2017 is the 5th consecutive year that it has received a 4.0 GPA, and the 27th consecutive year which it has met or exceeded the requirements of the CMAR. And that 27 years is how old the new wastewater treatment plant is. So money well spent. And again, every year I come up here, I take my hats off to the operators and staff at the wastewater treatment plant. And thank you for your support, both with funding and other sources of support. Thank you. So with that, I'll take questions.
Any questions?
Only that Councilor Duncan and I want to come visit
Yes.
the wastewater treatment plan. So I'm announcing it publicly, so we are on the spot
Me
to make
too.
that appointment with you.
Yes, anytime. Just give us a
Thank
call.
you.
Absolutely.
Just remember, and I hear a lot of people saying me too, just remember, if we all go together, we have to notify the city. We have to notify the city clerk so she can post it, okay? We got to make sure. Okay, great job. Any other questions or
Harry, congratulations on getting great reviews. Also, I don't know if you listened to the CAFR presentation, but you're doing pretty good on the budget too.
We're doing okay.
We appreciate that as well.
It would have been kind of awkward coming up here with anything but that, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
So you're doing well with the budget and with keeping our water clean. So thank you so much.
And I also would like to echo the that 27 years ago, was it 27 years ago? Hard to believe. But that was a key to providing Beloit with the opportunity for development and having that plant there. And it continues to give us benefits as a financial report disclosed earlier. So that's a big operation. That's a big positive for the city that we keep it and maintain it, and and you're doing a amazing job. So
Absolutely
thank you.
critical to our growth, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Forbeck.
I just want to say, well done.
Thank you. I'll pass that along, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No, that's no. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Whoa, wait.
Supposed to be a motion to accept the report?
Yeah, we have to vote on, it's a resolution to accept.
So moved.
Motion by Preschel, second by Duncan. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Is there a motion to motion? Duncan. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?